Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 26 of the Capitalist Corner. I am the host, Mark Pellegrino, and the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and co-chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, also the host of his own show, The Rational Egoist, which you should tune into if you want to raise your IQ points. Not too much pressure on you. Is that, Michael?
No, and great episode coming out most likely tomorrow. I interviewed the economist Philip Magnus all about Marxism.
Ooh, we need to hear that because there's a lot of Marxists moving around today trying to take advantage of the chaos that the Trump administration is throwing out there in the world and that the left is trying to capitalize on. And they're trying to distinguish themselves from the popular left now, from the establishment left. And so there's a lot of Marxist movement out there. We need this episode like we need good, nourishing food and fresh water. The American people need to know there's another alternative out there besides various types of left-wing collectivism and right-wing collectivism. There is the American Capitalist Party at americancapitalistparty.org. Join up, become a member, be the change, folks, because we need it. We are heading for a crossroads very soon where we either decide to embrace the American dream and become fully free, or embrace the collectivist dream and become a slave state, with a few people, of course, in the lead, some of whom we might be talking about today. Look, this Trump administration is one of the most chaotic, strange administrations I think I've ever had the displeasure of being under, since I have to say I am under the regime of the Trump regime right now. I'm subject to their will, and I don't think I've ever experienced a time where I'm more subject to the will of one human being than I am right now. So I'm assuming Trump ate a couple of quarter pounders, woke up in the middle of the night with this inspiration. Alcatraz.
Yeah, Alcatraz. Yeah.
I'm going to open Alcatraz. It's a symbol of law and order. It's a symbol of separatism. It shows that these people that we're going to convict and put into Alcatraz, they're not like us. They shouldn't be near us. They should be outside of society and separate. And let's make no mistake about it. Nobody escaped from Alcatraz. I don't even think that myth is true. I think somebody did escape. They never found him, right? But according to Trump, a bunch of clothes turned up on the shore with lots of shark bites, folks. Tons of shark bites. Anyway, so he wants to reopen Alcatraz, which was closed in the early 60s because it was too expensive an operation to run. Now, keep in mind that the entire prison, according to some experts, would have to be razed to the ground and completely rebuilt. This is a guy who claims to want to cut spending, but we're talking about a real estate project here that could cost in the hundreds of millions, if perhaps maybe in the billions, if we're really talking about it. And then to maintain it at a time when the Bureau of Prisons is actually shorthanded, strikes me as the strangest pipe dream in the world, but he's determined to do it. And then you see his Bureau of Prisons guy echoing the very same sentiments that Trump puts out on his Truth Social. Now, you've been within the system, so you know how screwed up it is, how undermanned it is, how utterly terrible it is. What do you think about this idea of reopening Alcatraz as a symbol of justice to the world?
Well, it's not a symbol of justice. First of all, I mean, it's a prison. The thing is, I don't like to, generally speaking, I don't like to analyze. I shouldn't say that. I like to analyze why people do things. It's what I've done. It's what I do. I've been doing it my whole life. But when you're talking politics, it's often not relevant. You can't prove it. But in this case, I think we can make a good case, if not prove it, that Trump has a severe need to appear tough. And I think that he looked at Alcatraz and he just feels like, oh, if I do that, that'll project toughness. I will be a tough guy and people are going to see me as the tough guy president. Of course, it's not. Trump's not a tough guy, and it doesn't matter how much he pretends to be. but the idea that you're going to put people over there, and of course it starts with it's going to be the worst of the worst, and we're going to get them over there and show, but it ends up not just being the worst of the worst. But they've already got, I mean, are there prisons? Do we have a problem with people escaping from federal prisons? Because this would be a federal prison, not a state prison. So as far as I know, there's nobody escaping from supermax federal prisons. So what is that? That's what leads me to believe this is all about Trump trying to project an image of himself rather than an image of justice. But there's also this, right? And I can't say this enough. Yes, people should be punished for the crimes that they commit. Prison should not be fun, right? It should be a place where you go that's uncomfortable and that ultimately will incentivize the person to put in the work that he or she needs to do in order to change and become a productive citizen. But the purpose of justice, we're not, what's the word I'm looking for? Retributivists, right? As objectivists. We're not just punishment for punishment's sake. The reason you practice justice is to promote the type of world that we want to live in. So the question becomes, when you're doing this, and let me just switch this over because I forgot. When 95% of prisoners come home, right? We ought to want them to come home and succeed. We don't want them to be criminals. We don't want them to be victimizing people, right? So what is more likely to do that? We could just send them away and say, we're going to lock you up and we're going to put you in a room or on an island by yourself and you're not going to have any human engagement. Do your time and we're going to let you out. And then once you get out, we're not going to accept you because we hate what you've done to begin with. So screw you. Well, what is the result? I mean, we know what human beings respond to. What is going to be the result if you put somebody on Alcatraz Island, treat them poorly, don't, give them basic human necessities, let them out, still tell them how rotten they are because you know what they've done maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever years ago. And what do you think is going to happen? Is that a recipe for success? It seems clear as day to me that it isn't. Far better would be to have clear, firm, consistent rules that are established within prisons where people go, where they're not abused, but they're also not treated like it's at a camp. And the opportunities are afforded them if they want to rehabilitate themselves. That seems to me a far more humane, a far more just system that is more likely to produce good results for all of us.
This sounds like a very good discussion to have with James Valiant while I am away working in Atlanta, because improvements to the justice system definitely have to fall under the rubric of a capitalist system. We want a system that puts justice first, and that means, of course, restorative justice, taking care of the victim, and punishing the perpetrator, but at the same time, not sending out people back into the world. As you said, 95% of these people go back into the world, not sending them back out into the world as worse criminals than they were when they came in. So there's definitely a delicate balance, I think, a balancing act that we as capitalists, as free market people, as believers in justice, have to somehow make possible. And this would be a great conversation with him. James says something in the comments here that he says, do you think this means he's throwing in the towel, sending our worst of the worst convicts to El Salvador? I would say yes, except for the fact that another article expressed the desire on the part of the Trump administration to send these folks to Rwanda. Now they're striking a deal with Rwanda to send these criminal aliens. Well, I mean, I guess to the Trump administration, everybody who comes here, quote unquote, illegally, is a criminal. So that might include, innocent folks who are trying to make a living and have changed their circumstances for the better. Now they might go to Rwanda, where, of course, there are concerns that Rwanda will accept them and then promptly repatriate them back to the countries of their origins. Some of whom were generally trying to escape those countries of origins for persecution reasons. Now, what do you say about this? I mean, this is apparently England tried to do this before under their previous prime minister, and the deal fell through. Of course, it was stopped by the courts. It was stopped by various institutions that had a grip on reason. So, what do you think of this latest salvo from the Trump administration?
I one time heard on a sports radio show, and I'm not saying I endorse this opinion, but I think it has its merits. And the guy said that if you lean slightly left on social issues, you will never have to worry about being embarrassed for the position that you took. Now, obviously, that's not extreme left, slightly left. And the reason I brought that up is because I firmly believe 30, 40, 50 years from now, people are going to look back on this time much as we look back at Jim Crow, or we look at the Japanese internments during World War II. I really believe that, because this behavior is not acceptable. And they may have their, media outlets right now that are willing to put out, misinformation about what's going on and defend it at all costs. But historians won't always be so kind as they're going through archives and as they're reading orders of transfer and executive orders and things of that nature. And I just think, you're talking ultimately about human beings. And one of my favorite things that they do, and I'm using, favorite sarcastically, is this claim: if you're an illegal alien, that's what you're asked. Are you illegal? If you are, you're gone. We don't have to give you due process. But how do you know he's illegal? Well, how do you know if you don't give him due process? And then it's, well, we're just going to ship the criminals overseas. It's only going to be the criminals. They're going to be the tough ones. And there's no mention of what crimes are they actually accused of, what crimes have they been convicted of. We're going to send them to hellholes like El Salvador and Rwanda. That's where we're going to send them.
Now we've seen that it doesn't even matter. What matters is the accusation itself. I mean, this is akin to the crap you see on social media, where the conservative press has been going on and on and on about how bad a guy Garcia is, as if that somehow renders the call for due process completely.
Right.
I don't care if he's a bad guy. He still has the right to due process like any other human being that comes under the umbrella of the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. And I sent you another article, so if I'm jumping the gun, I apologize. But it has to do with, they're now offering $1,000 for illegals to self-deport. And the claim is that if we can do this, this will allow us to go after the criminals and focus on the criminals. If we can get, your law-abiding illegals out of the country. But that's such a sleight of hand to me. I mean, they might as well have that $1,000 under the cups playing 3-card money, because the original claim was we're going to be focusing on dangerous criminals. But now they're saying that the illegals have to self-deport so they can focus on the dangerous criminals. It's always the case. It's always some sleight of hand. It's always some bullshit. That's what's coming. And, people may say, well, these are just, they're illegals. They deserve to go. If you believe that once you give the government this kind of power and allow them to do it, it stops there, you are out of your mind and you are historically illiterate. And I don't know what else to say. Maybe that's harsh, and I'm sure someone will criticize me and say you need to be kind and persuasive, but I have a really hard time being kind and trying to reason with people who think it's okay to snatch people off the street and ship them to El Salvador and then say that anybody who's opposed to this is just pro-gang member.
And then start a smear campaign against the person, whether or not the smears can be justified by the testimony of the wife or a report that she had written up against the guy. Those are all truths that are irrelevant. They're irrelevant, folks.
I think we have an offer. Can I say we have an offer? Alan Thomas says any articles for the day should be linked in the description. Is Alan Thomas going to do this?
Alan, you're dealing with a boomer adjacent guy and a boomer adjacent guy right now.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, I agree. I would love to do that. But here's the thing. I send these articles to Mark. There's a lot of articles and they have to be fresh. They can't be from 2 to 3 days ago, right? Mark has to read them and then decide which ones we're going to get to. Often, I don't even know which ones we're going to get to. And maybe he doesn't either, because there's a long list. In the meantime, I have to do real estate title searches, do the research for the show that we're doing, research for the other podcast that I have, prepare today because I have a debate at 3:00, and I have to keep up appearances on social media. I don't have the time. I think it's a great idea.
That in itself is tough, but maybe
Yeah.
Flash Alex can help us with that because he is computer savvy. I've seen him
Yes.
computer, and he's very
I
good.
will gladly turn over the reins of the handling of the channel to anybody, right? Because now when we come off the air, I have to now go in to the YouTube channel. I have to change the description of the show because now I'm going to know what we talked about. So I have to do that. I have to create the clips, download those to YouTube, put them to the playlist. Then I have to download them all to another site so I can send them all to Mark. This is a lot.
And Michael, the union is screaming now because you're doing way too much.
It's okay. I'm not complaining. I'm only just offering it as the reason that I just can't do all these things.
Listen, I have a comment from James Valiant. Alcatraz has a vile history, which Trump seems to concede. So I guess that's part of the attraction, right? We know Trump likes to pretend like he's the tough guy on the block, the big man on campus, and he thinks that intimidating folks is the way to win. And so if Alcatraz has a terrible history that has an intimidating aspect to it, it seems like, as you said, this is just sort of Trump throwing his preferred profile, personality profile out there in the world to try to project a toughness that he doesn't in fact possess. And that is really scary. Hey, Nicole Hengel has a question here that you would know something about, being a bit of a Salmon House scholar yourself. What's the recidivism rate in the U.S.? Is it pretty high?
It is, but it also depends on state, and it depends how you're measuring recidivism. Some people measure it by rearrest. Some people count parole violations. Some people only count return to prison, convictions. The last time I knew, the 5-year overall recidivism rate was 80%. But that is 7 years ago. So, it may have changed. It usually stays around the 3-year. They use the 3-year mark, and it's usually 67% roughly.
So what do you attribute that to? So since we're talking about justice and justice reform, certainly prisons, something's going wrong in the prisons themselves, so that whatever's happening with the criminals is making them certainly not better.
Okay, so let's start with the very important thing that criminals are screwed up in their thinking, badly screwed up, right? Samanow and Yokelson said that to change a criminal, they know of no harder enterprise, amongst human beings than for a criminal to change, because you have to change your entire character structure, all your values, your interpretations of events, your actions. It's not, an easy task, and you have to want to do it. So criminals of themselves, when you talk about the recidivism rate, it's very difficult to change from the outset, right? Then you have to add into the equation that when you send a guy to prison, the rules are intermittently enforced. Brent McCall and I actually documented a full third of the rules are never enforced. Now, a lot of those rules are stupid and shouldn't be rules. But if a rule's too stupid to be enforced, then it's too stupid to be on the books. So what ends up happening with stuff like that is the correctional officers, let's say, I have this card right here. Let's say it's against the rules for me to have this card, but it makes everybody's life easier that I have this card, right? That inmates are allowed to have the card, so the COs allow it, the inmates know it. But now a CO gets a hair across his ass for me personally. He knows I have the card because he knows everybody has the card. He takes the card, he writes me a disciplinary report. What can I say? I'm guilty. I have the card, right? But that's how rules are enforced. They're often used just as weapons for retaliation against inmates. And, the lack of rule enforcement, the chaos within the prison, the inconsistent rule enforcement, the way the correctional officers conduct themselves, it all leads to a toxic brew that furthers the criminal mentality. First of all, criminals start to think, see, everybody's corrupt just like I am. If the correctional officers look how they behave, they just haven't gotten caught. I happen to get caught. So you have a lot of that. Then when you add to that the lack of efficient programming, now there's an abundance of evidence for what type of programming actually works. That's generally not the type of programming that's implemented. And even if you do technically take the program and implement it, they have what they call therapeutic integrity. And what that means is that the program is run according to the way it's supposed to be. So if they implement a great program, but the staff have no real interest in doing it, like they'll fast forward through videos, for instance, because they don't want to waste time in their minds doing it. They'll butcher the lessons. So when they're doing that, there's no therapeutic integrity. So you have that problem. Now, let's just say you do have a program that's implemented absolutely correctly, and it's a great program, great ideas, and these guys are learning lessons. They want to change. But what's going to happen when they go back to the block? The rules are intermittently enforced. There's no consistency. The blocks are virtual zoos, so the noise is nonstop. So it's very difficult to do the kind of reading and thinking that you're going to need to grow. It's just a very, very difficult situation that has so many, what's the word I'm looking for? Tentacles that are just intertwined that all need to be undone. It's a very intricate web that needs to be broken down in order for it to have a effective correctional system.
So this is a years-long, if not decades-long process that has to happen.
Yes, there's a private prison called Serco. They're a company, and they run private prisons in the UK and Australia, and I believe New Zealand. And what they do is they distribute bonuses and a lot of their remuneration based on results. So based on reductions in recidivism for when the inmates go home. So it's actually run like a private business where your goal is to reduce recidivism, and they make money based on the results they achieve. In America, what they call private prisons are basically the government pays these places based on the amount of people that they house. Now, it doesn't take
subsidized prison posing as a private prison.
Yeah, but it doesn't. Even if you were going to have the government subsidize it, you could still run it according to market principles with the right incentives, right? You only get paid if you get results. They're getting paid based on the amount of people you house. So what is then the incentive? The incentive is to have as many people as you want. What they used to do is they used to just pay them a given amount, whether the bunks were empty or not. And so that people started complaining, why are we paying them for empty bunks? And that's how they got to, well, we'll pay them based on the people that are housed in the building. When in reality, you should be paying these prisons based on limiting escapes, for instance, limiting assaults on staff, assaults on each other, eliminating or reducing recidivism. Those are the types of things that a prison should actually be structured to do. They just aren't.
Well, this is an interesting argument for actually private prisons, and that their incentives are to get people out on the street who are well-adjusted and won't return to prison, won't commit any crimes again. And that is reflected in their financial remuneration. So that's kind of an interesting thought. Maybe you should broach this topic with James Valiant on the show while I'm gone, and I can watch it from.
Okay. Well, now that we've volunteered Jim to be on the show while you're gone, Jim, do you accept? Will you be joining me? Give us the big thumbs up.
Considering that, I just want to say Eric Clayton has said he's offered to do any type of work needed for the party. So, Eric, if you could DM Michael, since Michael has control of this this venue that we use, go ahead and DM him and see if you can set something up.
Yeah, understood. But here's the thing: what we would need, and this is going to be complicated because I have the StreamYard that we need to record on, and then it would be I could record it, and then maybe download the link to somebody else, and they could set up a YouTube channel. I don't know. But Alan Thomas says I'm sounding like Prince Humperdinck. Who is Prince Humperdinck? I don't ever even heard of him.
Humperdinck isn't that from The Princess Bride?
I don't know. I've never seen The Princess Bride. What did he do? Was he
in The Princess Bride?
I know I've not.
Okay, first of all, you have to read the book. It's amazing, but I suggest you read the book after you watch the movie because the book is actually better than the movie, and that's saying a lot because the movie is fantastic. Yes, Princess Bride. So,
Okay, so what does he do? Is this guy some kind of a jerk? Is Thomas taking a
yes,
shot at me?
yes, he is. I don't get the reference, Alex/Alan. Please
Here's
show
the
me.
thing, right? So then Alan says, hold on, let me swipe up here. He says, "Don't forget, you have to frame Gilder." I don't know what that means. He says, "Got it." Oh, I see. He's saying I have too much to do, and then he says, "I get it. You're swamped." But the
Oh, see,
problem is,
that's the whole thing. Yes.
it's a little dig. But here's the thing: you don't understand. Like, I have so many people telling me all the things that I need to be doing. Like, it's not just
Now,
here;
hey, look.
it's everywhere.
Now you got to see the movie because that is a very funny scene when he talks about all the things he has to do just before lunchtime or something. It's pretty funny.
Everybody seems to love it in the comments here, so maybe I'll check that out.
I didn't remember that. Now I make the connection. It's a great scene. Well, when James
says, hold on. Alan Thomas says, I find it interesting that agency of the prisoner is left out of those incarceration formula. Alan, clarify what you mean, because are you saying that that the Department of Corrections leaves out the agency of the prisoner, or that I did? Guys, but let me know.
I think it seems to maybe I'm speaking for Alan, but you seem to be saying, look, there's so much corruption within the prison system that the prisoners just sort of are in a stream of corruption and that they can't get out of, and that sort of determines their outcomes as opposed to them being moral agents.
I'm not saying it determines them. I'm saying that it makes it very difficult. There's incentives in life, right? Like, I would never say that because somebody had bad parents that they don't have free will in order to do the right thing in life. But obviously, if you've got a kid growing up in an abusive household, as opposed to a kid who grows up in a house with loving parents who try to teach them right, there's a greater chance that the latter is going to turn out better than the former.
Indeed, that's certainly true. Well, I hate to get off the prison topic now and get on to.
I wouldn't. I've had about enough of prison.
More dire topic, if you can believe it or not. There is actually a more dire topic than this prison thing, which in some respects is laughably dire. I mean, when you think about Trump's motivation for reopening Alcatraz, and then you think about sending out feelers to Guatemala and Rwanda to house prisoners. These are very frightening if they weren't comical. We have another scary thing going on right now, folks, and that's the trade war. Right as we speak, the Prime Minister of Canada is speaking to Trump, and of course Trump would classify it as he came here because he wants to make a deal. He just what's what he wants to do. He wants to make a deal. No, you've alienated Canada by stomping over there like you're the big man on campus and claiming that we should make them the 51st state, as if the Canadians have no say in this. What you don't realize is that many Canadians define themselves in opposition to America. My own wife is Canadian, and she's like, it's not that she's anti-American, but her pro-Canada thing is stridently independent. Like, we are not you. We just want you to know we are not you. So whenever an actor wins an award, Canadian, she'll say Canadian. And so there's sort of an identity over in Canada that has to do with not being America. And Trump, not knowing that, of course, touched that chord pretty seriously by claiming we could just annex them as the 51st state and make the prime minister the governor. It was such a condescending thing. I would be offended, and I'm not even like a nationalist, but I would be offended by that kind of behavior. Well, here he is starting a trade war with China and our neighbor Canada and everybody in the world, basically claiming that he's making deals, and then simultaneously claiming the contradiction that he's just trying to bring manufacturing back to America, both of which cannot exist simultaneously, while trying to convince the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, that he should lower interest rates. lower interest rates. Now, Michael, can you talk about that? What does lowering interest rates, even though these are short-term interest rates, what does that do to an economy $37 trillion in debt, and on the cusp of trying to finalize tax cuts, which will, I guess, add $7 trillion to the deficit? What does lowering the interest rate do?
Basically, just to make it easy, is you're ultimately talking about is injecting more money into the economy, right? We don't have a gold standard in America. The amount of money in circulation is determined by fiat, right? That's why it's called fiat currency. And what this is ultimately talking about is putting more money into the economy. People are going to be borrowing more. You're going to start investments. But when you put more money into the economy, what happens? You ultimately bid up prices, but it also misdirects where the money should be spent. So entrepreneurs end up investing in things that they shouldn't invest in, not investing in things that they should. And we end up with depressions, recessions, that sort of thing.
The boom bust cycle that everybody
Yes.
Capitalism. Yeah. It's not due to capitalism, folks. It's due to fiat currency malfeasance. It's due to malfeasance on the part of the central banking system, which sends mixed signals to entrepreneurs. So prices, guys, and interest rates reflect something in reality, or they should. They shouldn't reflect the whims of a panel or even of one man. They reflect something in reality, and that informs entrepreneurs as to how they should invest, or if an investment is too risky to risk putting capital in. And when they don't have these kinds of, when they don't have the proper inputs, it distorts the economy terribly. It creates what we call bubbles or malinvestments, and the malinvestments eventually burst. And they call this a boom bust cycle. Now, apparently Trump thinks that the bust will probably happen after his 4 years are over, and what he wants to do is maintain the illusion of economic prosperity, when in fact we're just spiraling deeper and deeper and deeper into debt and malinvestment. Go ahead.
Interesting. Well, no, I just looked over to my left, and to my left I have Murray Rothbard's great book, What Has Government Done to Our Money? I also have Benjamin Anderson's Economics and the Public Welfare. Benjamin Anderson's one of the few people who actually predicted the Great Depression. I also have Murray Rothbard's A History of Money and Banking in the United States, and Milton Friedman's A Monetary History of the United States. I would recommend them all. I would also recommend Ludwig von Mises's great book, Theory of Money and Credit. And finally, I would also recommend the book, The Austrian Theory of the Trade Cycle, and other essays. And, you could also go and read Alan Greenspan's great essay on the gold standard in Ayn Rand's book, Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal.
Yeah, let's not forget that we've lost touch with the Misesian concept that investment comes from saving.
Yes.
Okay, we've lost that concept, and so lowering interest rates robs us of real investment. And what it does is it replaces investment with real capital, with debt. And that is partly what sends us into an economic spiral, folks. So the last thing you want is Powell to lower interest rates right now, even though it'll make the Trump administration look good. It will add trillions upon trillions of dollars to the deficit. It's going to rob you of your savings. That's what inflation does, folks. When you put money away, the money in an inflationary cycle, the money you have today is worth more today than it will be tomorrow. So you're incentivized to spend. It kills your time preferences, folks, which is what investment is all about. Your time preferences become more and more immediate and in the moment, and less long range when your money is worth less tomorrow than it is today. So it encourages spending, and that's what makes the economy look like it's actually booming, because people are spending. Well, they're spending because they can't save. And if they can't save, there's no real capital investment anywhere, folks. It's all fake. It's smoke and mirrors. And this is what Donald Trump wants. So please, I can't think of a single policy of his, with the exception of the minutia of deregulation that he's doing, that is capitalistic in nature. This is statism through and through. What say you, Michael?
I agree. but seriously, he's putting the pressure on Jerome Powell, and this speaks to the one of the main reasons to have a gold standard or some type of non-arbitrary standard, because as we talked about in relation to prisoners, human beings operate based on incentives. So if the president wants to make the economy appear good so that he can brag about what a great economy it is, he can attempt in his mind, he can make the economy good, but you might initially create a boom by artificially lowering interest rates because people start spending, they start investing, and it appears that things are going well. But in reality, it's a house of cards that's doomed to collapse. The thing to do is to take these powers out of the hands of human beings who, contrary to the beliefs of some, are just people, right? And often they're corrupt people. So they're often going to bend to the incentives or to the pressure to do these things, to interfere in ways that are not good for the economy. Whereas if you have a gold standard, the amount of money in circulation is directly determined by the amount of gold that's been mined.
Yes, that's true. But that's going to take a long time to get back to, given where we are now. So hopefully some kind of hard money standard can get us back on track. And then we can start thinking about eliminating the Federal Reserve. Greg Lewis says something here that is disturbing, a little piece of news. Savings account paying a whopping 0.25%. Okay, a whopping 2.5%. That's 1/4% is what you will get if you invest your money, which is well below the rate of inflation. So you're losing money again by saving money. I mean, this is just madness. That the Republicans can look at proposals like this with a straight face and claim to be not only constitutionally minded, but the defenders and protectors of capitalism. Please, I mean, the masks are off with this guy. Speaking of masks off, unless you want to continue with this conversation, which is terribly depressing.
No, let's talk about masks. What's the what's the speaking of mask off references?
The mask off is the real social agenda behind national Christian conservatism and the Trump administration, because there's a new Oklahoma curriculum, I guess, put in place by the governor that requires students to learn 2020 election fraud conspiracies. Now, before you say that's okay, that's a part of history, meaning people did think that the 2020 elections were stolen, and as a piece of history, that aspect of it needs to be taught. People need to know. Well, some folks thought the election was stolen and still consider it to this day, including the president of the United States, even though there's no evidence to suggest this. That would be sort of the appropriate blurb that you would learn in a high school. But no, folks, this is not what they want to do in Oklahoma. What they want to do in Oklahoma is teach the conspiracy theories as if they are fact.
Yes.
Fact. Go on, Michael. Take this.
Well, it's utterly disgusting on the face of it that you want to warp the minds of children with the bullshit put out there by an orange narcissist. That's the first thing. But again, the underlying problem here is the government involved in education. With the government, there needs to be a big movement to get the government out of education, because it's again incentives. This guy wants to kiss Trump's ass, maybe, or maybe he really believes it. I ultimately don't know, but I do know that you're talking about warping children's minds. One, you're giving them false information, so you're screwing them there. But what are the epistemological things you're teaching them on how to gather information, how to assess truths, how to weigh the evidence? And also, like, what are you telling them, that the system in America is just fixed to get, I mean, America's flawed, and I'm the first one to say it, but for God's sakes, the election was not fixed, and we ought not to be sending that message to kids. And this guy, I believe he's also big on teaching the Bible in school. So it's just a lot of very, in my mind, scary stuff.
And look, one of the people that helps us with the party has done a great deal of investigation into this. particularly in Arizona. There are two friends of mine. One is a major tech guy, and the other guy is a philosophy teacher at City College of New York, tenured professor. Actually, who is one of the few philosophy professors who's a friend of objectivism. And they did find lots of irregularities, but the irregularities do not a conspiracy make. They just make irregularities. That's it. And they still don't amount to a victory for Trump. So you can talk about those things as historical fact, but you can't talk about Trump's perception of the election as if it's a historical fact. His perception is simply self-serving, and an attempt to sow more seeds of doubt in people's minds with respect to the integrity of elections, because it serves his short-term interests, not the long-term interests of the American people, but short-term interests. Now, Michael, to me, this also reflects the right-wing backlash against, the left's dominance of academia and school curricula, where kids have been taught things that are just as damaging to their epistemological faculty, right?
Sure.
With intersectionality, this hatred of America for America, this concept of colonization, and imperialism and its link to capitalism. All of these things are fake news as well. So this is clearly a backlash against that, but it's a false dichotomy. It's a backlash of fake news against fake news, as opposed to, hey, let's discover what the truth is, and that's what academia should be about. For school kids, it should be about learning how to think, learning how to integrate facts, and sorting out what's real from the unreal.
Right. Do you remember when, I think it was Paul Ryan, when the left put out commercials that Paul Ryan was going to be pushing grandpa or grandma off the cliff? That was Paul Ryan, right? I think so. It doesn't matter. There was a Republican that was depicted as pushing old people off of a cliff. You had Joe Biden out there saying they want to put you all back in chains. So the left has been doing this sort of thing for a very long time, and it seems that the right now, it just does the same thing, just with pushing their agenda rather than the other agenda. So we just have now two dishonest sides, and it's almost like it's more about beating the other side than it is about implementing good policy.
It's not even that it's more about that. That's exactly what it is. And I think President Washington foresaw this when he saw parties start to develop in the United States, the Federalists versus the Anti-Federalists. He knew that partisanship would eventually become the ideal that people worked towards. People would become partisans rather than working for the American people and defending the Constitution. And he was right. We now see two tribes throwing their false narratives out there and struggling in the public square to get the dominance of their narrative over the other one. Neither of them are true. Neither of them should be trusted. So look, folks, if you want the truth, you should go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Yes. You should also hit the like button here so the algorithms like us, so that this information gets out there more and more. And so that we then have the power to bring on guests who will speak the truth to you, who are not afraid to question their own premises, as you should, each and every one of you, be doing every day. Look, I started out as a leftist. I started out as a leftist environmentalist. I was a registered Democrat. I mean, I went through a conservative stage that I passed through because I read a lot of conservative commentators like Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams, who were just too brilliant to discard. But they themselves are political independents. And then I finally passed through that stage onto, real liberalism, folks. And sometimes we have to go through that ugly stage of growth where your hair is somewhere between short and long. And conservatism of the 1980s was sort of that version, and the 90s was sort of that version of the between space between short hair and long hair. But now it's become what has it become? It's not even that space. It's something more horrific and scary. So you can skip over it now, folks. You don't have to read Charles Krauthammer or any of those guys anymore, who actually make sense, because most of them don't exist in the nationalist conservative movement, because they've been taken over by the Candace Owens of the world, the Charlie and the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who are eminently intellectually inferior to those guys, and skip right to classical liberalism and start searching for the truth and getting the truth here on this little teeny network that we're starting here.
So I just
Go ahead.
wanted to share something with you. You made me smile when you mentioned the hair length. One of the commies thought he was really going to hit me with a shot. He says, "Bye, Baldy."
Yeah,
First of all, I have a full head of hair.
yes, you do.
Even if I
The
didn't,
hairline.
like that's what you're coming with, Baldy.
That's all they got. That's all they got. That's all they got is gaslighting. When push comes to shove. Hey, but I discovered a great guy, a great objectivist online.
Rock Chartrand.
Yeah, man, he's the Rock.
He's in here. He's in here now.
Good Rock. Rock is awesome. He has been body slamming communists left and right, and now, of course, they've stopped responding to him because it is like it's not even close. The knockout comes within about 15 seconds of the first round, and it's all over. But I love that it shows that when you just expose these guys to a little pushback, these communists, their entire system, their entire phony system, philosophical economic system just crumbles to ash. Folks, give these guys pushback. They're really trying to take advantage of the chaos out there that Trump is deliberately sowing, that the left is deliberately trying to take advantage of. Go for the third alternative, which is liberalism, writ large, folks, meaning freedom. Did James Valiant ever get back to you about his decision to?
He did, and I'm a little disappointed that you didn't see it, but I'll allow that.
Okay, thank you. What did I miss?
Okay, wow, I missed this one. So, physician, heal thyself over here. James also said when we were talking about prisons, James says, as a DA, I was freaked out just going to a prison for parole hearings. Jim says, accept. So he is accepting. So, Jim, I will call you at some point in the evening and we will chat and we'll make arrangements. So, Jim Valiant will be joining me here instead of Mark. We've got to be careful lest Jim ends up replacing both of us.
This is a step up. Yes, this is a real step up. Knowledge-wise, articulation-wise, I am giving up my throne to a guy who could quite possibly usurp me, and happy to do it because nobody can articulate these principles, in my view, better than James Valiant can, and he can integrate them into the very topics that we've been talking about in a great way that'll make it really accessible to everybody.
Yeah, and Mark, just so everybody understands that Mark is very biased toward Jim. Jim and I had a debate that was moderated by Mark, and Mark clearly tried to sway things in Jim's favor. So I just want, I haven't forgotten that. I just want people to understand.
That is not true, even though it had the appearance of being true. I gave you an extra 2 minutes on the back end that you didn't use. I just want you to know that. Hey man, real quickly, what is this thing you gave me? The doll tile update. What is this little letter that you gave me?
Okay, so my close friend and landlord here, Subby, he is in the tile business. So yesterday, my friend Brent, who's incarcerated, called and he told me to ask Subby, hey, is he experiencing any price rises due to the tariffs? And I asked Subby and he said, no, not yet. And then today he got that letter. So
you want to read it or shall I?
Sure. No, go ahead. Read it.
Yeah. So this is, folks, just for people who aren't feeling the pinch yet. And I got to tell you, in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start seeing the pinch and emptier shelves at the grocery store. And I'm feeling the pinch at the grocery store. Things are considerably more expensive than they were before, regardless of the price of eggs coming down. The price of everything else is rising. Thank you, Donald Trump, for that. This letter, dear valued customers, dated May 5th, 2025, so very current. While the majority of Dow tile products are proudly manufactured in North America, a portion of our portfolio is sourced internationally. In light of recently announced government tariffs on imports outside of North America, we will be implementing a price adjustment on select affected products. These pricing changes will apply to impacted new orders effective June 2nd, 2025. To retain current pricing, orders must be placed by June 2nd, 2025 and shipped no later than June 27th, 2025. Updated pricing details will be available through your account representative or electronically via Pro Exchange beginning the week of May 12th, 2025. We sincerely appreciate your partnership and continued support as we adapt to these evolving economic conditions. Yes, adapt to evolving and chaotic and uncertain economic conditions. This is what I think grocery stores and other big stores are attempting to do now, is they're trying to stock up on items before these tariffs actually have a serious price effect on them. Because unlike politicians, businessmen have to think miles and years in advance about how they are going to keep their business up to demand and how they're going to keep innovating. Politicians only have to think up to the next election cycle, which in this case, it looks like Trump isn't even thinking about the 2026 election cycle. Because I think they're going to lose if this economic news continues. No matter how hard Fox News tries to spin this shit, it is shit. It's shit.
And people know when they're suffering, right? There's no, when somebody can't afford rent or can't feed their family or take their kid to a ball game that they're used to taking them to, you could put all the spin in the world you want, but that person understands what's happening.
Well, and let's hope, folks, that due process is restored by then, because if you start complaining, you may be put on some form of enemies list or considered an enemy of the Trump administration and therefore anti-American for saying what you're saying. In fact, we may be on that list, Michael, because it seems like every day we're saying something about the Trump administration. The guy just can't keep out of the news. And I get the sense that that's his real priority, is to keep in the news as opposed to doing right by the American people.
Yeah, there was no question. What's the question?
There was no question. It was just it was sort of a question without a question mark.
Oh, okay. So,
you have to read the.
I've heard of statements with the question mark where the statement actually serves as a question. I've never heard of the question without the question mark.
Yes, well, I just invented that. It's just like Trump invented.
Very innovative. Capitalism. Under capitalism.
Trump has invented that tariffs made America great and that tariffs lead to prosperity. I'm inventing.
Yes, they do.
Ask a question without a question mark.
So we have a couple minutes left. I was able to call back that radio show today and just light up my detractors rather nicely. The host didn't seem to be too pleased that I called to do that, but my take on it is, if people are allowed to call the show to slander me, then that's the format where I'm going to call to defend my name and defend myself. You know what I mean?
Yes, I feel you. Trust me.
What do you do with this slander? We've talked about it earlier. Are lawsuits the way to go?
Or what?
I mean, no, I'm not a litigious guy. Like, I don't have any interest in suing, but I also don't have any interest in people consistently lying about me. Like I said, look, there's plenty of bad things. If you just tell the truth, and you could say bad things about me all day. Look, you don't need to lie.
Lawsuits are not necessarily the way to go, because I don't know what the law is with respect to slander and libel in Connecticut. In California, it would require at least $250,000 to bring a libel suit against somebody, and even then you are not guaranteed to win, because you have to prove intent to harm, and if you can't prove that, then you have to pay the legal fees of the person, which is automatically there's an anti-slap suit in America that once you claim somebody's committed libel against you and you bring suit against them, they have an automatic suit against you, which means everything you've ever written becomes fodder for evidence. Everything, all of your tweets, all of your texts, everything that can go into anything that you've done, and
that might not be good for you.
Risk for the bill. No, it's fine. It's fine for me, because I say privately what I say publicly. So I'm an open book.
You are the best. You might have the best Twitter account going.
I wish more people thought that, but they don't. I have a bet actually with a friend of mine in Brazil. Great girl who really helps me out. She's a psychology student. She has, I don't know if she's an objectivist, but she certainly thinks like an objectivist. She's awesome. So I have a bet with her that she's taken me off the bet. She's like, stop thinking of it as a bet. This is just a self-improvement thing. And it's true. I'm working on the way in which I deal with bad people on Twitter, so that to make my own communication skills much more higher. I just used a double comparative. That's bad English. That's bad.
Let me tell you, I normally correct people when they do that, and let me tell you, people love it when you when you correct their grammar and the way they speak.
Well, I did it for you.
Yeah, no, but like when I do that to people, let me tell you, it's very endearing and ingratiating. They really love it. I'm the hit. They want me to come to parties and everything, so I can correct people when they misspeak. It's big.
This is true. Spencer says Jim Valiant is the GOAT.
It's already starting. It's already starting.
He's vying for my job, and he can have it because he's that good. I don't mind deferring to the better man. So I guess I have to give the capitalist thought for the day.
You do. It is your turn. Yes.
So
I'll be giving it for the next week.
Yes, you will. Does that mean that I have to give it for the week following?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking of it that way, but thanks for the idea.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm fair-minded that way. So
equity, and we got to have equity over here.
Yes, equity. I don't know if I was reading this from the Hazlitt article or not, which was about the legacy of Marxism. But I remember reading somewhere, and it might have been there, that one of the things that made England the source of the Industrial Revolution was its law, was the fact that it put law above the rule of men, and it started that from the Magna Carta on. And it demonstrated how important it is to have certainty in law and the protections of law in order to have a free society and a free market. What we have right now is what the Trump administration is demonstrating right now is a complete and total disregard for the law. And you can see what it's causing, folks. It's causing massive uncertainty in the markets. It's causing, I think, a financial regression and an economic regression, and it will continue to do so long as people are not certain about their own protections. People are stepping away from the dollar right now, folks. I was never nervous that BRICS would somehow supplant the dollar as a form of currency in the world, but with the confluence of forces that's happening now, I mean, it seems ever more possible as people step away from the dollar because they simply do not have confidence in the stability of the American financial system, which is only made more stable by being free and being subject to law, not the whim of men. And what we're seeing now is the whim of one man over the law. This cannot stand in America, folks. Americanism is about rugged individualism, but it's also a country ruled by laws, not men. And that is how we protect our freedom. That is how we protect capitalism, laws over men. And that's my capitalist thought for the day.
That is a great place to end. That was superb.
Thank you. All right, folks. So remember to hit the like button before you leave and get your friends to hit the like button, even if they haven't seen it. I don't care. We want lots of likes on this station. That way it does nice things with the algorithms, and then we can do more things with the show and put the message out there to more people, which we need in this day and age. Follow me on Mark R. Pellegrino at X if you want to fight with me. Okay, I'll fight, but I'm going to fight nice now. So you know, it is actually more enjoyable for me to fight nice, to be honest with you. So I'm going to fight nice now. But if you want to also be nice to me, I like that too, just so you know. You can also follow Michael Liebowitz and watch and listen to his show, The Rational Egoist. You'll be better off for it. And your guest coming up sounds like a great guest. And this is coming on tomorrow?
Should be tomorrow. If not tomorrow, Thursday, yeah.
All right, so tomorrow or Thursday, make sure you listen to that, because the Marxists are the enemy, guys. They're not the solution to the problem that ails us today. The Capitalist Party is the American Capitalist Party, AmericanCapitalistParty.org. Join, donate, become a member, be the change. And folks, I won't be seeing you tomorrow, but Michael will, and perhaps James Valiant, and you're going to enjoy the show, and you're going to like the show.
And hit the like button for the show.
And hit the like button for the show, or else. Until then, folks, just remember to check your premises. Thanks.